Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Danvers. We are now in session. If I could ask you all to please silence your mobile devices or turn them off, set them to vibrate so we're not interrupted. I'm going to start by introducing our staff from the Planning Division. Our Planning Director, Mr. Brian Zacchelli, over there to my right. The Zoning Board members to my right is Jeff Sauer. Our clerk tonight will be Ken Scholes. Myself, John Bowner, as the chairman. To my left is Ken Jarvinen. And joining us remotely is Corrine Doherty. And Corrine, if I could just have you give me a mic check.
I am here.
Very good, thank you. We would ask that anybody that's going to present after the clerk reads your case tonight, step up to the podium there, let us know who you are, and present your application to us. At that point, the zoning board members will ask questions of you. We'll open it up to public comment after that, and then we will turn it back to the board for deliberations. I do ask that all questions from the public or otherwise come through the chair. Also, if we'll give you an idea how your case is going and what your options are at the end. I think I've covered everything. Board members, we are all in receipt of minutes dated April 8th. Is there any further discussion on those minutes?
No.
Hearing none, if I could get a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
And seconded?
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And with that said, Mr. Clerk, if we could read our first case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first case is 154/170 Water Street, zoned R2. Request for a one-time 6-month extension for dimensional variances that were granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals on 5/11/2023 in order to allow the applicant to apply for state funding for this senior housing development. No change in the property circumstances upon which the variances were granted has occurred since the board's granting of the relief. Request is made by Nancy McCann regarding petition 23-5012.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of NEHD Wind Development. With me tonight remotely is Ramey Schneider, Senior Project Manager for the NEHD Wind Project at 154-170 Water Street. And we are requesting, just as the legal ad said, a 6-month extension, which is permitted to be granted under 40A Section 10, to allow 6 months additional time on the variance exercise. As you'll recall, this is a large project, senior housing development, 50% affordable for those with a preference of deaf, deafblind, and near deaf. It's an involved project. Since last May, we've done quite a bit towards moving the project forward. We have received, in addition to the site approval that you granted, we received our order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. We've been working with the Affordable Housing Trust. We are near 100% construction drawings at this point, which is quite a significant undertaking. We've been working with Danvers Electric and Danvers DPW with regard to the stormwater permit, and importantly, we have applied to the state in the very first funding round that was available after the approval that you gave last May for our funding through the low-income housing tax credits as well as other state initiative types of funding. We anticipate hearing back on that perhaps as early as June. But the variance, as you know, is a 1-year clock on it, and that expires on May 11th. We did receive from you a special permit at the same time as the variance. Special permits have a 3-year clock. Orders of conditions have a 3-year clock, but for some reason, the legislature being what it is, has a one-year clock on the variances. So that's a very short time period for a project like this. So we are requesting, as is permitted under the state statute, 1 6-month extension of that variance, which would bring the variance to November 11th, 2024, and we are certain that by that time we will be able to fully exercise the variance at that point. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, and this is probably just for my own understanding, and speaking with Mrs. Kelly too, I'm very clear on where things are at with this project. But for my own understanding, you said working with the Affordable Housing Committee. That number got set as part of the presentation, so maybe you could just go into a little detail. What work has to be done?
It's not work as much as keeping them advised
Okay.
of where the project is progressing.
So there hasn't been a number change on
No.
units or anything like that?
No, absolutely no
It's
change.
just basically keeping them in the
Yes.
loop? Got it. And we're talking November 11th, 2024.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll open it up for if there's no other changes to this project whatsoever.
No other changes at all.
Jeff, anything?
I have no questions. I
Ken?
just hope the state
Oh,
gets
go,
their
sorry.
act together. So.
Yeah,
I have no questions, thank you.
thanks. And Ken?
I have no questions.
How about you, Corinne? Do you have anything?
I actually have a few.
Go ahead.
Attorney McCann, in your letter dated March 6th, you state that you should be hearing back from the state in May with regard to funding, but tonight you stated it's June. Have you received any type of indication that the funding is being delayed or the announcements are being delayed?
No,
I can answer that.
Yeah, Ramey can perhaps answer that a little bit better than I. It's May or June, to my understanding, but if we can let Ramey answer that?
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
And you're right. I think we said May optimistically when we originally put this memo together, thinking, what was that, back in early February? Our applications went in February 15th, and it's taking the state, unfortunately, just a little bit more time to review. They have a number of turnovers and staffing, I think, as we all know. And so we've been advised that it'll likely be, and I want to caveat it with likely be May or June. I think Nancy said June tonight, just based on trying to be cautious and manage expectations. But again, we're beholden to the state in this, and hopefully we hear sooner. But I'm hoping that it would be by June.
Okay, as part of working with the state and with regard to that funding, have you already entered into a regulatory agreement with the state, or is that something that will happen for you later in the process?
Exactly. That happens closer to closing, a financial closing, but this project hasn't been funded yet, so there wouldn't be first you have to do an application, then they fund you, and then closer to closing, you enter into, or during the financial closing, you do the full regulatory agreements and all the other loan docs as part of Mass Docs closing.
Okay. So is this somewhat the last step before you can actually begin the process, I guess, of construction?
Yeah, funding is our last step. I mean, that's why we're moving forward with 100% CDs and working with DPW and engineering, so that as soon as the state says go and we are able to get a full financial closing, we're ready to go.
Okay. And one other thing, and a question that I have, and Attorney McCann might be the proper person to answer this question. Sure. As part of our discussion last year, before your relief was granted, there was some sort of an indication that the state would need to do some sort of archaeologist review of the property to determine if there were any artifacts there. Where in the process does that investigation happen?
Yep, Nancy, I can answer that one too. We worked with our historic consultant, Pal, and we did an archaeological and historic review of the site with Mass Historic, and it came back as no significance. So we came back and the site has been cleared. That's part of the state application, is that you need to show from MHC a letter of insignificance or whatever else may come up. But we did file a PNF with MHC and it came back with no significance.
Okay, well, that's actually great news that you've already kind of cleared that hurdle already.
Yep.
That's it. Those are the questions I have.
Thanks, Corinne. I have a couple of follow-up, Attorney McCann. So, let's say on the outside chance, the state, and again, I understand they move slow, and that's part of the problem here, or maybe there's just lots of layers, and it's just inherent that this is how long it takes. What if for some reason this financing is not in place by November 11th? What happens? What would you
There-
seek, or what is there, what's your
typically another-
relief in this?
There are-
Funding round. Sorry. There's typically a mini round in the summer, and we would apply for that mini round. And in the past, notifications have been, call it October, November of that year. So we're hoping that should the state, and typically notice of funding, should you not get funded, like if we were not to get funded, the mini round is typically a quick turnaround, with the intention of hopefully getting funded during that time.
So there are other funding options after this, the typical one that we hope to hear back May or June.
Exactly.
But if that is not successful, is there something else we can do? Is that kind of what
Oh,
you're asking? There is. What we're asking for is the extension to allow us to exercise the variance. And that exercising the variance, we work with the planning director as the code enforcement officer to determine what actually has to be done
Exactly.
for this project to be exercised.
In the funding in place, that, at that point in time, whenever that does happen, May, June, sometime, hopefully before November 11th, at that point is when you're actually pulling permits?
That's when we can, yes.
That's when you're, okay.
Yes,
And that
that's right. That's why-
activates the variance at that point.
That's right, and that's why it was important what I told you, that we're at nearly 100% completion on construction drawings.
Yep.
Because that tells you that we're not going to have a delay in, now we have to do our construction drawings. No, we're almost 100% there,
Okay.
which is
So-
a
So
big
actually, this
hurdle.
delay is helping in that aspect.
Yes.
Okay, and just to follow up on what Corinne was asking about archaeology, you've gotten this clearance by, I'm guessing, another state agency. What if we put a shovel in the ground? I mean, are the construction folks kind of like blind to this now that they've got the green light? Or if we uncover something, does this shut the site down? What on the outside chance, if something like that were to happen, what would be a process there?
There is certainly a protocol that happens if you're in a construction site and you find
Exactly.
an archaeological item. It depends on what that item is, and then there's a protocol that
I take it
follows.
this happens infrequently?
It happens infrequently, and quite infrequently when a project has already gone through the review as this project has, or this property has.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to bog this down further. I'd be really interested in what that review is, because I don't know how, I mean, they don't x-ray the ground, I don't assume. And I'm not sure walking there, I mean, we all walk the grounds, right? You know, we don't have the
People who go out-
trained eye, but
That's
I'm,
right. Well, that's it. The people who go out from the state and from other consultants who are in this business, they look for things that you and I wouldn't know to look for out on the site.
okay, any follow-up questions from the board? I'll turn this over, I'll open this up to the public if anybody would like to make a comment. Otherwise, we'll be voting on extending this application, this variance, only the variance, out till November 11th. Seeing and hearing no public comment, no one online, Brian, I'm going to turn it back to the board.
Oh, no, sorry, Corinne had her hand up.
I have one more question.
Sorry, Corinne, go ahead.
Is there any concern that this funding might not come through, and would you have kind of like a plan B to fall back on if it didn't come through?
I think it's not a concern. Well, first of all, we've had conversations with the state about this project. The state is excited about it. They think that it's they're excited about it. So I just want to set that up. I think oftentimes, and I'm just going to be very candid here, we see projects, because there are so many projects applying for low-income housing tax credits, we see projects often, and often projects that the state is excited about, not get funded the first time that they go in. So for us, it's not a concern about if the project gets funded, it's just a matter of when. And I think we've always said a year ago, when we were going through this process, that it might not be the first funding round that we get funded on, but we're hoping that it would likely be by the mini round, which would be this summer's funding round, should it not be this first round.
Well, if, let's say it doesn't get funded in the mini round too, and, they give you the state gives you some sort of indication that, well, maybe it would be next year, would you move forward with the project and if you did, what does that look like, from either WIN or New England Home for the Deaf?
Yeah, I think Nancy touched on it. We're advancing drawings so that we can be in the position so that we can move forward, and we'd work with Brian to understand what that scope would mean to act on the variance.
So I can,
Okay.
very quickly, Chair,
Sure.
just to, I guess, put some confusion out, or to quelch some confusion. The fact that they have already applied for federal funding, one round already. The fact that they are going through with construction drawings, talking with Danvers Electric, they're clearly effectuating the permit, in my opinion. So I actually think that this is a belt and suspenders approach that I'm not going to say is unnecessary. It's not unnecessary. However, it's very clear from my perspective as the zoning enforcement officer that as of right now, the permit is being effectuated.
Okay. And I just want to make sure I understand. You said federal funding, but it's not federal funding, it's state funding? Or is it
Sorry,
both?
It's
It's both. Yeah.
It's both.
Yes, but the application is
It's
managed
through
by
the state, but it's federally funded.
Correct, yes.
And the legislature votes on this, or is this a line item in a budget somewhere? I mean, I guess, again, I don't want to get into the weeds here,
It's not a legislature
but,
vote. It's not a legislature vote.
Okay.
Thankfully.
yeah, okay. All right, I think I've heard everything we need to hear. We will, let's deliberate with you, Mr. Jeff.
I will vote for this. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
And I will vote for this.
And Jeff? Ken, sorry.
I'll vote for this as well.
And Corinne?
I will vote for this.
And I too will vote for this. We do understand that, some of this is out of your control. Seems like a lot of steps have been taken to advance this project. I think everybody's just kind of eager to see it, as I'm sure you guys are. But I think
Yes.
from the town's perspective, I understand the charter school is, on its way too down there. So I think about that neighborhood and the impact, and so I just hope it all comes together nicely. So if I could get a motion, please, on 154, 170 Water Street.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant an extension of 6 months to exercise the dimensional variances granted to the applicant relative to the NEHD Wind Senior Housing Development approved at 154 and 170 Water Street. No changes to the application or the site have occurred since the granting of the dimensional variances.
Okay, and I just want to add in a date of November 11th, 2024.
I will second that.
I've got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Thank you guys very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Go right ahead, Mr. Ken.
Okay. Our next case is 14 Mildred Road, zoned R2. Request for a finding under Section 3.11 to build an addition that is located closer to the left side property line than permitted as of right on a lot that is undersized at 16,553 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required. The building is non-conforming with respect to the left and right side setbacks. The request is made by Michael Bean, care of Gregory and Judy Snow, docket 24-5069.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Just,
I'm Greg. My wife Judy is sitting in the white sweater.
Just if you could give your address as well and last name.
14 Mildred Road, and last name is Snow.
Very good. Tell us what it is you'd like to do.
Basically, we have a very small ranch. It's about 1,200 square foot in total. And what we'd like to do is, it only has one bath, and we would like 2 baths. The only way to really accomplish that is to use the existing spare bedroom to convert to a bathroom and bring the laundry up from the cellar as well. So we'd be adding a bath with laundry in the existing spare bedroom. And there's also going to be added a hallway to go out to the added bedroom. The bedroom would be going off the back left corner of the house, 14 feet wide and 18 feet deep towards the backyard. And that pretty much accommodates us so we can continue to have 2 bedrooms in the main house and 2 baths, including laundry. We've been there 26 years. We're getting a bit older, and we're trying to prepare the house for that. So that's basically what we're doing. Yep.
Okay, so you're adding a, I think 14 by 18, is that what I saw?
Yes, yep.
14 by 18 addition, you're not changing the setback. It looks like it's already at 13.4, and does that include the overhang? Or will there be an overhang to the addition?
I'm going to defer that question to my builder, Mike. I'm not sure about that one.
Hey, good evening, Michael Bean. The house currently has about a 9-inch overhang, so it would follow that same line.
Okay, so you're going to stay at the same
Yes.
design there, okay. All right, do you have anything else you want to present? Just come to the mic if you can.
Oh, Mike.
After you.
Oh. No, I mean, if I can go through the presentation with you, but it's basically the plot plan before the addition, the plot plan with the proposed addition, and then some drawings for you to, get a feel of the outside of the house and the way the floor plan is.
Okay, well, why don't we,
Public plan.
we'll ask if you don't mind to stay up there, and Mike, if you could as well, and we'll have the board members ask some
Yeah,
questions.
Okay, yep.
Corinne, I'll start with you.
I just have one question. It looks from the plans, and maybe I'm reading these wrong, that you will be moving the bulkhead back to where the edge of the proposed addition will be. Does that mean you're extending the basement as well?
Yes, it does.
So
The bulkhead is currently in the location where the new addition would go, so it would get pushed back. And yes, the basement will get extended.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Corinne. Ken J.
I have no questions.
Thanks. And Ken Scholes.
No questions, thank you.
And Jeff?
No questions, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. This is a non-complying lot already, right, non-conforming. And you're just extending the non-conformity, it sounds like.
Yes.
And it also does not meet setback, which it already didn't meet setback. So no, I think I'm good too. I'll go out to the public on this. Anybody here for 14 Mildred Road? Yeah, come on up to the microphone. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. My name is John Talberday. I'm the abutter at 16 Mildred Road.
Okay.
And I've had an opportunity to review the plans that the Snows have presented. I believe it's an appropriate thing to assist the residents of Danvers to be able to stay in their homes and age in place. and this is exactly what, that they're trying to do. And I think the design of it will blend in well with the neighborhood and with the existing architecture of the house. So I hope you vote in favor of it.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? 14 Mildred Road. Okay, hearing none, I'll come back and we will deliberate. Kareem, we'll start with you.
I will vote for this.
Thank you. Ken?
I'll vote for this as well.
Ken S.
I will vote this.
And Jeff?
I will vote for this.
And I too, I don't see a problem with this. So if I could get a motion, please.
You got it? Want me to read it?
I'll read it.
I make a motion to issue a finding under 3.11 of the Danvers zoning bylaw to expand a non-conforming building on an undersized non-conforming lot, where the addition will be non-conforming with respect to the side setback. The extension or enlargement is appropriate in scale and mass for the neighborhood.
I will second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Very good, good luck. Thank you. Good luck with the
Thank you
project.
very much.
Thank you.
Getting a lot of feedback, huh?
I know it.
Not the kind of feedback we're looking for.
Well, yeah, we're having a problem when we
Turn it
don't
up.
turn it enough, we can't hear. So
Yeah.
it's like this.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, and last but not least.
Our last case is 152 Endicott Street. This is Zone C3. Request for a variance under Section 37 signage of the Danvers zoning bylaw in order to allow an off-premise ground sign that is otherwise dimensionally compliant. Several variances govern the property since 1974, as new tenants have made upgrades over time. Request is made by Torrigan Properties, care of Joe Bisignano, docket 24-5070.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Chairperson Bonner and members of the zoning board. My name is Frank Marinelli, and I am the land use attorney for Torrington Properties. Just give you a little background. My office is at 439 Washington Street, Braintree, and I represented Torrington in the project approval process with the planning board. With me this evening is Pete Doucette, who's the Director of Development for Torrington, and also Greg Michaelitis, who is our consulting engineer, and also Charlie Shalio. Charlie is with SES Sign Company that prepared the sign plans that you have before you. So this, just to give you a little background on it, the property 152 Endicott Street is what's proposed a redevelopment of approximately 4.3 acres in the Commercial 3 zoning district. The commercial property, as the board knows, is currently an eyesore that hosts a deserted Denny's and a deserted Days Inn structure. Torrington's approved project is to demolish the blight, install a new road at Torrington's expense, largely following a 1972 state taking layout, Chalet Court, and to construct two buildings at the end of 152 Endicott Street. First, an approximate 10,900 square foot single-story pad which will host Fidelity Investments, and that's shown right here on the plan. And secondly, right now we're designating a four-story hotel with about 99 keys, about 15,000 to 16,000 square foot footprint on 4 stories. Yes?
Could you please move the tripod to your other side?
Sure.
Because we can't really see that. It's like glaring off with the projector. Thanks. Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess technologically, we could have, the town does have the plans on its website.
Yeah, it looks like they're showing it up here as well.
Okay,
Oh,
so that's one of the plans. What I'm trying to do with this plan, C-102, which is one of the 33 sheets that was approved by the planning board, is give you the whole site. It's important because the proposed off-premise sign is down here at the intersection of the new road that Torrington would construct, and that is 490 feet, approximately 480 feet from the front door of Fidelity, and it's approximately 590 feet from the front door of the hotel. So it'd be extreme hardship to put the millions of dollars of improvement that we're making to the commercial tax base and to the commercial property with the removal of the blight that's out there, and also install the road and not have signage. That's what this application is all about. We own the property up here, which you can see the property line. The road we're putting in, we don't own that land down there, so therefore, by virtue, as a matter of law, it becomes an off-premise situation for us. And the only way we can have reasonable identification is to put the sign right here in the layout, but it's actually a grassy kind of knoll embankment, so it's an appropriate location. That appropriate location was shown on all of the sheets that are part of the planning board approval. We were in the planning board process from June of 2023 through January of 2024. On January 9th, the planning board approved the site plan approval for the uses by right, the retail pad for Fidelity and also the hotel. And they also delegated the road improvement to Torrington. So there is a title opinion, which is dated July 25th. Not to bore you with all the background legalities of it, but the planning board did a thorough job in the review, and the opinion is that the town has control of the 1972 Chalet Court layout by virtue of the state taking and designating control to the Town of Danvers, and pursuant to that, the planning board delegated to Torrington, the developer of 152, the ability at its expense to make the improvements from the upper half to the lower half to connect to Endicott Street. I hope that's clear for you, because that really spells out the fact that this area down here is off-premise, we're improving it, and therefore the need for an off-premise relief from the zoning board. Without that off-premise relief, as I've stated in the application, if you look at pages 3 and 4, the non-approval of the requested off-premise ground sign would be a gross hardship to the multi-million-dollar 152 redevelopment and investment in the C3 commercial zone. Absent the requested ground sign, the 152 redevelopment would have no reasonable identification at the site's sole ingress and egress. So the road that we're putting in to serve the tremendous redevelopment that we're doing is the only way in and out. And therefore, this kind of embankment over here on this side where the sign was shown on sheets 102, 103, 104, 105, and 106 of the approved plans is the appropriate place for the off-premise sign. The application goes on to also make the case on the purposes of Section 37 and the purpose of the sign bylaw. The proposed, under 37(1)A, the proposed sign does not, by reason of its size, location, construction, or manner, display, endanger public health, safety, and welfare, but instead, it enhances the goals of reasonable identification and public safety and welfare. It is tastefully done, as you can see. The sign is within the dimensional requirements of the Commercial 3 zone. The Commercial 3 zone allows 20 feet and 100 square feet, and we don't exceed that. The sign is conforming, as is pointed out in the staff report of the planning director, that the sign conforms, and we just have a situation where we cannot have land that abuts the existing public way, but the land that we're using and we're putting the road in is one that we were delegated to do, and therefore, as a matter of law, it becomes an off-premise requiring relief from the zoning board. There is no detriment to the public. There's no derogation under the bylaws because the purposes of signage and reasonable identification are fulfilled. And that's under sections 37(1)A through D. It says in B that the requested ground sign should complement the land use, and certainly it does that with reasonable identification. We would have no complementing of the proposed land use, the approved land use, if we didn't have the signage, because the land uses, the two buildings are 480 and 590 feet away respectively. So again, it would be a substantial hardship under the standards of granting the requested relief. Under 37(1)C, the requested redevelopment not only enhances the aesthetic environment, which is that standard, but it creates new improved, transforming a current eyesore and blight into a well-financed, redeveloped commercial site. Torrington, by way of background, has approximately 80 properties, approximately $800 million in its portfolio. So they are financially capable of doing the road, doing the development, and all for the benefit of the commercial area and the improvement to that commercial neighborhood. Just briefly, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I think that we've made in the application all of the requirements of Chapter 48, Section 10, from the uniqueness of the property to the shape of the property, which is irregular and disjointed and disconnected from the closest public way, except for the road that we're putting in, thereby making it an off-premise required relief situation. But we have made all of the uniqueness, shape of the lot, conditions and requirements under Section 48(10). I will say this, we've had a very cooperative relationship with Attorney McCann and her clients who own the properties at 160, 180, and 182 Endicott. That would be the Salem 5 building, and 180 is the former Bed Bath & Beyond Plaza, and 182 is the McDonald's. So the plan that we submitted on March 25th was basically showing 152 Endicott, our proposal, our development, and it showed Fidelity, and it showed the empty panel for the hotel. Since then, we've had discussions with our neighbor, and we've had various negotiations throughout the process, including improvements that we intend to make to 180, to some of the parking lot improvements that they had wanted. But one of the things that came up since March 25th, since we filed with you, was their desire to be on the sign and have one panel on the same size as the one that was filed with you on March 25th. But we submitted a revised plan dated April 16th, which you have in the record, and which Brian is familiar with, that we had sent in. So that plan would become the plan of record, and it shows one panel in the third position for Salem 5, and two alternatives. The two alternatives you see before you are the first one is if we had at 152 Fidelity and the hotel, and then Salem 5 would have the third panel. Their property is 160 Endicott. That's also off-premise, so they would need relief as well. So that revision causes a re-advertising and the scheduling for May 13th. The second alternative, just to finish up here, is if we had three tenants at 152, and then Fidelity, and two others. But Salem 5, 160 would still have the third position on that alternative.
All right, so you're talking about the same physical size sign, just
Exactly.
dividing it up a little differently. We need to re-advertise that, hence we cannot really vote and move forward on this tonight, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Well, we wanted you, I think that's what the planning director...
I'll go to Brian in a minute, but I just want to, if that's the way you understand it first.
Yeah, we feel that the sign is appropriate for approval, but that the sign that you are approving does have Salem 5 160 on it, and it is the final revised plan, so the 2 weeks difference to get it right and let 160 re-advertise, advertise to be on the sign, provides, that's a satisfactory course of action. You can approve the sign tonight. You can approve the amendment, which is going to be, which I think was submitted today by Attorney McCann.
Yeah.
But either way, the sign, we feel, is absolutely warranted for the redevelopment that's occurring in the commercial investment.
Okay. Anything else you want to present? I do want to go to Mr. Zakelli just for a couple of
Sure.
clarifications, but anything else you want to present to us?
Not at this time.
All right, so Brian, I think just to save a lot of words here, I think if I understand this correctly, we can't vote on it because it wasn't advertised this way, bottom line. And if I could just add to that, I think originally we were going to put this on a right-of-way, and now we're no longer looking to do that right away. It's going to go on.
No, this would be in the right of way.
It's still the right of way.
It still would need select board approval.
It still does, okay.
The issue tonight is that you could vote tonight, totally fine, giving relief for the Fidelity sign for 152 because they applied for an off-premise sign based on 152.
Okay.
You could give that tonight. You cannot give relief for 160 tonight for the Salem 5. Can't. They didn't apply for it, and I found out this morning.
Right, okay.
So
So it's a separate application, even though they're joining forces, or it's the same app?
it's going to be the same, so we are going to re-advertise, but it's the same petition.
Okay.
It's not a different petition, but essentially, you could do this two different ways. You could, if you feel it's appropriate, you could approve the 152, the Fidelity portion, essentially, of this sign, the original application. I disagree with Attorney Marinelli that you can, I don't believe that you can approve the amendment, meaning with Salem 5, the 160.
I didn't suggest that.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood then. So, two different ways. One way, you vote on 152 Endicott tonight. You could do that. And then continue to the next meeting once we have an application in for 160. That's one thing. The other way is you could do them all together at a later date, but there's no real, it's kind of up to you. The thing is, if you look up here on the page.
Yeah, that's not changing.
The only thing that's changing out of this whole thing is there's blue Salem 5 there. So you can clearly review this entire application. You just cannot give relief for that 160 yet.
Attorney Marinelli, I guess I'm going to ask this. I think for and the rest of the zoning board members will chime in as well, but I would rather see this presented as one package. And I would also ask, since I understand we don't have any scheduled cases, I don't see this as holding up this project, that if we, and I'm going to ask you, could continue this to our June 10th meeting, gives plenty of time for everybody to kind of get their ducks in a row, and we can vote on one package from both applicants. What are your thoughts on that?
We have a requirement in the lease with Fidelity, and I'll let Greg or Pete speak to this, but we had to be on the agenda, and it's part, from what I'm understanding, it's part of our lease requirement with Fidelity, and I think it's better if they address it, but we were trying to get the sign approved tonight so that we could be in good standing with Fidelity.
Well, getting the sign approved, though, is just one step, right? You still have to go in front of the select board.
We will be going, yes, I mean,
Okay.
that's,
And I will say this, and I believe I speak on behalf of the zoning, but we're all very familiar with this property as it came before us for other projects. That this particular one didn't come before zoning, but we understand the site and we understand what's going on over there. So we don't have the intimate details I think the planning board had because your presentation was with them. But this seems appropriate to me, but I just want to understand if there's a chance of moving this, because otherwise we're only going to come in for this one case between now and June 10th.
Greg Nicolaitis from August Consulting. What we're hoping to accomplish tonight is, yes, our preference would be to vote on our sign without the Salem 5. Short of that, you just gave your opinion. What we're looking for tonight is opinions, comments, any public comments, so that we can go back to Fidelity with confidence and say, hey, look, you know what? We missed the May 1st deadline, but we're going to get there. So we're all here, so if we can hear any comments you have and the public has, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure, we'll go. And before I turn it over to the board, do you have anything else you want to
not at
present
this
to
time.
us?
I did try to give a thorough background of where we were and how we got here. So if the board has any other questions about the permitting, I'd be happy to answer it, but without detaining you, I did try to give a full history of what we did since June.
Okay, thank you. I'll start down there with you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an off-premise sign, and who does own this property?
So there was a taking, and I mean, I can go through the whole legal opinion, but we have.
Brian, could I get your opinion?
It is, the town has the right to improve this land. We have given that right to Torrington. It eventually will be in part of the right-of-way as part of the Town of Danvers. So it eventually will be not town land. Right-of-way is, like, roads are not town land. So that's why it's this weird in-between. But there's no doubt that the select board would have to give approval. It's as if that this is a normal town right-of-way.
But somebody owns it, right?
Well, so once they complete the road, the thought is that they are going to then the town would potentially own it.
Has the state signed off on the road?
They've signed off the right to improve it to the town, and we have
So we
given that
own-
right to
okay.
Torrington.
Okay.
Sorry.
So that's why it's not it's not like who owns it. It's like, well, right now, it's potentially the state, but the state is not really claiming it at all. And the town it's going to be in the town's right of way. So that we're pretty clear on. So because it's in the town's right of way, they still would need select board approval for infringing on a town way. So just like we've done previously where signs are overhanging town land. Or, sorry.
It's not a very satisfactory answer.
No.
Who owns it? This seems like a simple question.
We will.
Okay. Yeah, all right. I have no other questions.
Thanks, Jeff. Ken?
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my head around this, because I was wondering about Chalet Court. So you've created Chalet Court as the entranceway to the Fidelity Building. Is that correct?
No, Chalet Court was laid out as a way in the night, there's a, just for background, there is a 4-page title opinion, okay? So
They have this in their packet.
Yeah, okay.
Right. I
So,
read
but
it.
just to, I don't mean to cherry pick certain sections of it, but on page 1, it says, the access easement was laid out for the purpose of providing access for access that had been lost by a taking. And then on page 2, it goes on, thus Chalet Court is a public way in the town of Danvers, as the taking did lay out the area as a section of the highway on behalf of the town of Danvers. When you get to the conclusion on page 3, it is the opinion of Attorney Moriarty, who is Marsh Moriarty on Tell and Golder, who is a well-known firm.
I know them.
For title. And it states, is my view, that this memorandum, and he's referring to a memorandum from Aaron Henry in 2009, accurately states the status of Chalet Court as a way that is under the control of the Town of Danvers, and that the town may delegate the process of constructing the way to third parties. So I'll introduce this, and I'll also introduce the supplement that was done for the purpose of the sign, which is dated April 11th, 2024, and I'll just read the conclusion of Attorney Moriarty on that. We note that on January 9th, the Town of Danvers Planning Board approved the road improvement plan for Chalet Court and 152 Endicott Street and designated JBM Danvers LLC as the party approved to complete the construction. Further, on January 9th, the Town of Danvers Planning Board granted site plan review approval that included approval for the construction of the new access road. Both the road improvement plan and site plan approval specifically include the proposed ground sign as part of the development. It is our view that the existence and location of directional and informational signs such as this are appropriate elements of the approval process for construction of the new access road by the town. The approval of the sign and direction of the planning board to JBM Danvers LLC constitutes sufficient authority in JBM Danvers LLC to apply for the variance, and no other consent is required.
Okay.
But hold on, though, but that's not entirely accurate because the other consent required is approval by the select board.
You're correct. What he was talking about was consent to file the application.
Right, okay. I guess my other question, too, is, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
To Attorney McCann, since your clients, it's not infringed, so Chalet Court is not infringing on their right-of-way into all their properties and parking and all that. Is that correct?
That's a, if you don't mind, Attorney.
It's a totally different road.
Lots of layers to this.
Yeah, lots of layers.
Thank you. I'm Nancy McCann. I represent the Animasis Trust that owns 160, 180, 182. Chalet Court that was laid out in 1970s is not big enough or laid out properly enough to provide access to 152. So we have worked with Torrington Group and Attorney Marinelli through the planning board process. And while Torrington is going to be building this new road in the approximate location of Chalet Court, my clients had to donate land to make that layout work, to make it big enough for turning movements. So we're very much a part of what's going on here because our land is being donated. So we need to be part of this sign as much as the folks at 152 need to be part, because this new road is providing the only access to 160 that's occupied by Salem 5. So that's why we need to be a tenant panel on here. And we were not part of the original application, unfortunately, that went into you. I have today filed that amendment, so Brian does have the application to essentially amend what was submitted to you to allow the 160 Endicott to have a tenant panel, and yes, that is an off-premise sign for 160, because the location of this off-premise sign is going to be quite blocking, quite honestly, some of the visibility of Salem 5, and this new road, just like it provides the only access to 152, provides the only access to 160. Salem 5 doesn't have its own access off of Endicott Street. So it does all make sense that it should be a tenant panel as well. So while I did file the application today, and we were working with planning staff to expedite the advertising so that it could be on your May 13th agenda so that you could hear it. It sounds like Mr. Michaelides is looking for your comments so that he can go back and however you decide to vote on the applications tonight or not vote on the 152 tonight is up to you. But we would be looking for the same thing tonight of your comments and feelings
160.
about that 160 panel. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Other questions, Ken?
I think I'm good now.
Ken Jordan?
My question was going to be about it seems like Salem 5 is on board totally, correct? Because from the vantage points, couple 1 and 4 on page 6 of this packet, looks like they are blocked from the sign.
Well, SES is here. We had a cone of vision that we thought was satisfactory at the time. We've certainly had discussions since then. The road, just so there's no misconstruction about that, is largely within Chalet Court. That was originally the taking in 1972. We have 2,280 square feet from the abutter. That's not a lot of land compared to the tens of thousands of square feet we're talking about, just to a point of clarification. The sign is appropriate, it's appropriately located, and as we said, it is within the layout of Chalet Court, which is the whole reason that it's off premise.
Yeah, but is it appropriately laid out for Salem 5?
Yes, that's what we've determined in reviewing, and also the panel that they're going to get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm John Kaczynski, Head of Facilities for Salem 5, and also a resident of Danvers, as it turns out. Yes, we've worked very closely through Attorney McCann and with the Torrington folks, excuse me, to come up with this. Salem 5 is fully supportive of the proposal.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Corinne, I'll go out to you.
I have several questions. First of all, if I am looking at page 6, photo 3, if you look at where the new Fidelity sign will be, it's back after the exit you would have to take to enter this whole complex. Was there any discussion by the attorneys or the parties here to put both Fidelity and the hotel on the big sign at the entrance? Because if Mass DOT is removing the curb cut that's further up, most of the people that come to Fidelity or to this hotel probably aren't going to be familiar with the area, and if they see all of the names on the big sign where the entrance is, but they see Fidelity and Salem 5 up further, they will probably assume that there's a curb cut up further up for them to enter where Fidelity in the hotel is going to be. And if we allow the sign where it's located now, once you turn into the complex, you're not really going to see where Fidelity in the hotel is, so we're going to need more signage once you enter that will be a directional sign telling customers of both Fidelity and patrons of the hotel where to go. So for me, I would rather work on a plan where every single person that is using this driveway as an entrance to work on getting their name on the big board when you make the turn. And then if we need to give some sort of relief for Fidelity, the hotel, and Salem 5 to have another sign, you know, on the paper road or somewhere nearby that indicates where Salem 5 is, where the entrance is for the bank, or, you know, the directional sign for Fidelity in the hotel, that would be a better use of signage than what is presented in this package. So at any time, was there a discussion to put all the names on the big board?
That sign is owned by 180 Endicott, but that's not something that's been on the table with 180. And it serves that particular plaza, so these are different properties.
Well, I understand that, but you're putting Salem 5 on your sign, and they're owned by that same group. So all I'm saying is that I think it would be better if you coordinated for the signage, especially where Mass Dot is removing that curb cut. So the only entrance for all of these properties is located right here where that big sign is.
Well, 180
So I-
has other curb cuts down by 182. This is the only, what you said is correct as far as 152. This is the only ingress egress for our multi-million-dollar investment at a blighted site. This is the only way we can get in and out, because as you point out, the other curb cut further up towards the expressway is being blocked. So that is one of the reasons why Chalet Court was laid out to begin with. And, you know, as I said, we are largely within, except for 2,280 square feet that we are getting from the abutter. But this has been months of negotiation, and that is just not something we can do at this time.
Well, is there any concern that by having the sign placed where it is, that customers are gonna miss the entrance?
Yeah, Corinne, this is Pete Doucette with Torrington Properties. What's not part of this package is our wayfinding package on the site. So when you turn down Chalet Court and you're heading, you know, basically straight towards our property, we will have wayfinding signs at the end of that road that they're on our property, so they're not part of this package. And that's part of the planning board will review with Stephen King in engineering. But when you take this right in, you know, which is a full rebuild, brand-new intersection, I think it should be hopefully apparent that that's where that sign's taking you. Although, like any sign, somebody could get confused if they're using, you know, GPS. But when you turn down the new Chalet Court roadway, you'll see a main boulevard essentially with Fidelity, the hotel, and all our other tenants straight ahead of you. It's not part of this package because it doesn't require any approvals.
Thank you.
But my main question is, are you concerned that your customers aren't going to know to take that turn there because their sign is past the entrance?
I think Fidelity feels very confident in their client base to be able to locate the site. It's going to be apparent and very visible from Endicott Street. You know, most people, if they're coming off the highway, you'll drive by it, you'll take a left at the intersection, and, you know, as you're leading up to it, most people would only see the gas station or the right. They're likely going to be sitting at that intersection. So I think we feel pretty confident that it's located far enough back to not obstruct Salem 5, but in a position where that right-hand turn, and, you know, that's the right-hand turn. If they know the address, they'll be heading right down Chalet Court. We can't control all the, you know, where everybody goes, but this is the most appropriate location that we've been able to determine.
I guess I agree to a certain extent. I'm just concerned about your customers not knowing where the entrance is to the parking lot for them, or to the entrance to the driveway for them. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
And just in response to that question as well, my name is Charlie Shallow, Site Enhancement Services. I actually handle all of the exterior branding for Fidelity Investments. I've been part of this team in regards to the freestanding sign. Yes, everybody I think can agree this will be a challenging site. Fidelity's already in the community. We're just moving down the street a little bit. The building that's going to be built is going to be magnificent. It's going to have great visibility right to Endicott. Is the entrance into the property ideal? Of course not. Just because of the traveling that our clients are going to have to do. But at the same time, Fidelity has seen this plan, has blessed this plan, understands the, I guess, difficulty that goes about signing this type of property, and is at this time completely on board with the project.
Okay.
Okay.
Brian, you know, again, I know we weren't part of the initial presentation and discussion with this, but I think when we're trying to vote on a location of a sign, I don't have a real good handle, and I think Corinne's pointed to a couple of these items now on how this whole intersection's going to operate. For instance, when you're coming, I guess it would be west on Endicott Street, is there going to be, I believe there already is, a left-only lane there that takes you into your client's site, which I guess is 162, if I have the numbers right, or 160. Will I also be able to get to Charlotte Court from that same left lane? Or am I doing a U-turn?
No, it's the same entrance, so the.
Oh, hold on, I want to hear from this person. If you have the answer. If not, come on up and explain.
The signals are not moving. In fact, we're making a substantial improvement to all new signals, video cameras. There's a lot going on, but the signals are staying the same. The intersection's being widened just a little bit. So
Okay.
that throat on Endicott is staying the same. We're just making improvements.
All right, well, so just walk me through, how does somebody get to Charlotte Court when they're going west on Endicott Street? Are they going to
You're going to take a left at the signal, right?
at the signal, like they do to enter
Correct.
162 right now?
That's what I'm saying. Nothing's
Okay.
changed, yes.
And you're going to come in to, that is not Charlotte Court, though?
It is. I think that's the confusion. I think
see.
that's everybody's confused. It's not a separate entrance. It's the same signalized entrance. It's just being upgraded from, it's bringing it up to this century,
Okay.
quite frankly, with the signals and,
So I have it correct, it's the same parking lot that brings me into the former Bed Bath & Beyond?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's shown right here. And Brian, I don't know if you have any of those.
Can you blow that up for us, Brian?
Yeah, hold on.
And then if you were traveling east, it's the same entranceway as
Exactly.
nothing's
It's a slip,
changed?
you got a slip lane in, yes.
All right,
Yep.
well, I think Corinne's point's valid. I mean, this is like a sign on top of a sign to me. You've got this large site sign for 162. I guess it doesn't make sense to me either why we wouldn't utilize one big sign there.
Okay, so Torrington's making a substantial investment.
I've got that part.
That site,
Yep.
Fidelity, major tenant, they've approved it. We have a major abutter, they've approved it. So, yeah, is it perfect? No. Is it the best we can do? Yeah, I think we've done a fantastic job. We're not asking for any size relief, we're asking for an off-premise sign.
Right, but this board's here to kind of make sure it makes sense, right? And that's our point as citizens of the town of Danvers. So, as Corinne pointed out, it's great that everybody's signing off on it, and we're definitely on board with the fact that this property is being redeveloped.
Right.
However, I don't think we're here to not at least understand the potential pitfalls, because that would dictate whether we would want to approve something. If it's not going to make sense, and people are going to miss this turn, because this sign is identified after they've come through that intersection, then it wouldn't make sense to put a sign up, right?
We're as concerned as you are, okay?
Yep.
That's why we have 152 on the sign,
Yep.
the address, we're adding 160 to the address. We're as concerned as you are. So this right here, private property is really right at that, right at the edge of the sidewalk. That existing sign is on their property.
Correct.
This is the entrance to Chalet Court. This, as you see it here, this is basically it. Coming to our property, that's the mobile station, here's our property here. So it curves this way, so this is not changing. We're doing a substantial upgrade to this, all brand-new signals, brand-new crosswalks, sidewalks.
What cut is going away? Further down?
Denny's.
Okay. And that was the former entrance for the Denny's in the hotel that was there?
Correct, that was the
So
only
that's going
entrance.
to close up?
That's going away.
Very
yeah.
good.
This is a limited access, which was established in 1972, just nothing happened.
And just while you're there, just for everybody's benefit, show me exactly where this sign you're proposing is going to be. Right here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Corinne, do you have any further questions?
I don't. I mean, I don't really like this. I'm not blaming Fidelity and the owners of the property. I know that they don't really have any other option, but I do think, as far as working together, as people that are using the same curb cuts, that maybe there can be some sort of agreement as far as the big sign.
All right, well, again, I'll ask the question again. I mean, I think this seems like a reasonable request, but I still think it would make sense to me if we had just one comprehensive package. I think you know, I understand Fidelity wants to be able to favorably report by a certain deadline, but I guess I would ask you guys to consider continuing this to June 10th. But I'm going to go out to the public unless there's additional questions from the board.
But
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
I have one obvious question. So when coming from the west, they're going to be able to see the same sign? I mean, so it's going to be both sides, obviously. Yeah, all right, thanks.
All right, anyone here for the public to speak on this case? Yeah.
Hi. John Talbert again. I'm a resident of Danvers, as you've heard before. And I've listened to this, discussion, and I can imagine the number of hours and all the effort that has gone into creating that sign and, getting agreement with the abutters, which I think is really good. I also happen to be a client of Fidelity, so I go into the Fidelity office at the other end of Endicott Street fairly routinely. And I think that, the sign that they've proposed, it's a very nice sign. It's certainly branded well. And it doesn't have any obstructions in the line of sight for people in cars or trucks, which the big sign, with the old Bed Bath & Beyond does. So I think that they've done a good job of trying to preserve the sight line for the drivers, while they're, entering and exiting, from Chalet Court. And also, people that go to Fidelity, they go there a lot. There may be a little bit of confusion the first time, and then the rest of the time, they're just going to sort of go on autopilot. That's
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Anyone else on the public side? Attorney Martinelli, I do have one follow-up question. I assume the sign's going to be lit, but I'd like to just hear.
Charlie, you want to address that?
Yes, internal illuminations proposed. The method of illumination would be, the background panels would be opaque, and the only thing that would illuminate would be the lettering and the logo. So minimal illumination compared to what you typically see in the commercial
Yeah,
environment.
and this is 24/7 or just hours of operation, an hour after, I think? Is that our bylaw?
I guess that's more up to property ownership.
Yeah, isn't that, I believe that is our bylaw. I'll ask you, Mr. Bryan. I thought it was 1 hour after business closed.
I don't think it's an official policy, but that is typically what we do. But it's
And-
not a
and-
written down policy.
This sign, obviously, from what I gathered this evening, is going to change to the 4 tenants. This doesn't change that piece of it, the lighting part of it or anything.
Right, no, it wouldn't. and
It's
the only-
basically shrinking the other panels to make room for this 4th.
Right, the only exception to the illumination with the 1 hour after would potentially be the hotel.
Okay, right, gotcha. All right, and I will ask, because you're here, has a tenant been identified for the hotel?
Pete Doucette, Torrington Properties. We're still working with the hotel operators to try to find the right one
Okay.
that wants to be in this location. So
Yeah,
we're-
I know,
we're-
and again, I think, and from a town's perspective, obviously, you guys have done, I think people are just happy to see the old site torn down, so I really, glad that this is finally moving forward. I think it's appropriate, the uses that are going to happen there. Well, I guess what we'll do is we'll strobe the board and see if we want to vote on this piece of it tonight, or if we would push for a continuance on the whole package. So I think I started down there with you, Jeff, and we'll go ahead and deliberate.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think we all agree that the appropriateness of the sign, I don't have too much of a problem of it being after the turn, because for people traveling westbound, getting off the highway, it's before the turn.
Yeah.
So half the traffic is going to see it after, half the traffic's going to see it before. So I don't have an issue with that. I would vote on the sign tonight. I really don't care about how many panels it's broken up into. They've given us the outside dimensions. They're within the bylaw. I would vote on it tonight, and, you know, it's a commercial zone, not advertising the third commercial tenant, to me, is kind of
That's
irrelevant.
4, right? 4. So, but 4.
3 over, I don't care how they cut up the sign. You know, it's the size that they've asked for, and I'm perfectly happy with that. So I would vote on the package tonight.
Okay, thank you. Ken?
I guess I would vote on it. I just feel that, are we going to have to rehash this whole thing again with Salem 5 in the next meeting?
I don't believe so. I think it's really a technicality in terms of why they need to reapply. And the idea is that you have all the information in front of you, but you can only technically vote on the 152 off-premise sign. Can't vote on the 160 off-premise sign.
Right. I guess I would vote for this.
Okay, thank you. Ken?
Yeah, I would vote on this and for this tonight. I think it's an appropriate place. And we have Salem 5 authority here as well, and they've blessed it, so I think we're good.
Thanks, Ken. Karine, I'll go out to you.
I don't think we can vote on the 160 aspect of it, so I think we need to put off voting on it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like not really on board with this, the sign the way it is. So I think we should wait.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Karine on this. I really would prefer to see a full package. However, I think we're outnumbered here, 3-2, so.
I was on the fence, so I don't really want to relive it again, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. I think there's a favorable action here. I just guess we would rather, I would say some members would rather see it presented as one package.
Chair, point of
It comes
clarification.
down to the one panel. The one panel would be back on May 13th or June 10th. It's just all about the one panel. But the rest, I think,
Well, I'm not even sure it's about the panel. It's really about the advertising, right? That we have to re-advertise this, if I have it correctly.
Sorry, I
Not
was
the
saying
whole
that,
thing,
right,
just-
this is a variance, so you need 4 votes.
We do need 4, okay.
You were counting to 3.
yeah, the advertising is about the one panel, because when 160 comes on the one panel, they are additionally an off-premise. But the
Right.
sign itself, as the members have stated, is, we've made the case, we've got all of the information in the record, and the further hearing would be about really just the additional one panel.
Well, I think you've heard from everybody. I think it's favorable. I don't see this stopping, but I also don't see, to my and Karine's point, that we couldn't table this, continue it, and perhaps it can be further discussion with your abutter to utilize the large sign, and not even need this.
So I think Attorney McCann can address that, but, you know, there's other tenants on that sign. There's the auto zone, there's Bed Bath & Beyond, or whoever takes that place. There's other tenants in there. It just becomes a mishmash, and it's not something, not something.
In all
that
due
we don't-
respect, though, Endicott Street is a mismatch, and I think this is, you know,
trying to do
it's
it-
it's adding to that mismatch.
Well, we're making,
right?
we have an attractive sign.
I
and
get
we are
that too,
very-
but, I mean, McDonald's would sit here and tell you their sign's attractive, and Burger King would say the same thing, right?
Well, the Golden Arches is a little
Yeah.
different than Fidelity.
Well, we hear that story over and over.
I'm not trying to be argumentative.
No,
it's
no,
just that we have
I'm
a-
listening, I'm hearing you. I just,
Just that we have lease obligations, and we have an attractive sign that meets the purposes of the bylaw, and it's our only way in and out. And there's nothing that would indicate as a matter of law that we have to go to a different private site.
yeah, no, I understand that. I guess I don't understand the lease implications of this, though. I mean, I feel by continuing this isn't holding you up, is it? I mean, technically, I
I'm
guess
not-
it is, but
I didn't
you're
negotiate.
getting
Yeah.
a favorable,
Okay, maybe I can just answer when I get a chance. I didn't do the lease, so
Yeah.
Pete can address it.
okay.
So with the lease, we obviously been negotiating and talking about this for a year and a half. So there was a date within our lease of May 1st to have an approved off-site premise sign, an off-premise sign. So, we've been working with Attorney McCann and Salem 5 and the trust for a number of months on the appropriate location, and got to a point where we needed to make that submission in order to be on the agenda for tonight. And over the course of the last few weeks, we came to an agreement on the third spot on that sign for Salem 5, and, so that's the obligation that we have. Technically, they have the ability to walk away, and we would be stuck with nothing here, which would not be beneficial to any of us. Is that going to happen? Probably not, but they have the right to do that. So, we're not trying to force anything, but I think as Attorney Marinelli stated, we feel like we've put it in the right place, we've done the homework, we've worked with the abutters, and, we feel pretty confident that this is going to work. Yes, is it preventing us from proceeding? As you know, we've already started demo, and we're working with the town right now to fully mobilize for site work, but part of this is trying to finalize an agreement that we want to start to move out into the parking lot, build this road, which is in that grassy area, and really start to advance the whole project, not just the little bit of work we're doing on site.
Well, I can appreciate the year and a half, but we haven't had it a year and a half, and I don't think we're asking for a lot here to continue this. We're talking weeks. But I'd like, actually, Corinne, I would like to hear from you again, based on the discussions we're having here during our deliberation.
Well, again, I don't like the location of it. I just wish that there was like another alternative for this. In addition to this, to that question, you mentioned that it has to go to the select board for approval, even after we would approve a sign.
That's correct.
After that, does it have to go to town meeting? Because usually when they accept roads, it goes
No,
to
it's
the
just,
select.
it's just the select board that, it's similar
All right, so
to,
there isn't the second step.
It's a license.
it's similar to Nolan, when he was hanging a sign over the sidewalk. The select board, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian.
Yeah, no, it's a license essentially from the select board, so they can.
A license,
A
is that what you said?
license,
Yeah. So they're issued a license by the select board to basically put a sign on this right away.
Oh, no, but I'm not just talking about the signage. I'm talking about them accepting the road. Does that have to go out to
Misunderstood.
town
Yeah,
meeting for the road acceptance?
correct. Sorry, I misunderstood, Corinne. That is correct.
So is that
Okay.
on for this?
No,
It's not?
not for this May,
That's
no.
in May.
No,
May 15th.
it's not on for this May?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, so the earliest that could be put on like a warrant would be November?
November,
If we
yeah.
have,
Correct.
okay. Would that slow the project down at all?
Mr. Martinelli?
No, we're building the road and at Torrington's expense. And then at some point in the future, showing that it's complied with town standards, you would submit it at that point to engineering for recommendation to town meeting.
And then it would go on the warrant? Okay.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, Ken, you had a follow-up question?
I did. So, in the fact that we didn't approve this, the lease is blown up, basically, is what you're saying? And what's the deadline of that lease, that you have to have this?
It was May 1st, so we'd be in violation of the lease, unless they accepted.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, how come we're just seeing this now?
Yeah.
I hate to say, lack of planning on your part isn't an emergency on mine, but in so many words, that's kind of what I'm saying. We didn't, we're trying to...
Yeah, I mean, we're just getting this today, basically.
I think that the prospect of going elsewhere is not on the table, and Attorney McCann can address that. But when you look at 180 and the number of tenants on there, I think this is a much more conducive sign in terms of fulfilling the purpose. When you talk about the purposes under 37.1 of the zoning bylaw, this is, and we've laid it out in all of the materials we've filed with the board, that this complies with the 37.1 A through D. I don't think putting something in a place where we're not authorized to do it, and I doubt that we're going to ever get authorization to do it. And, you know, in terms of the negotiation and the process, it has been lengthy, and nobody intended to come here at the last minute. And so
But you did.
Well, I mean.
All right, well, I'm gonna.
We had the sign on the plans.
Okay.
That were approved.
I'm gonna stop that now, because this is deliberation time, it's our time to speak. I believe we were, briefly, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak about the comments that have been made about the sign that is an on-premise sign at 180, that's the big Bed Bath & Beyond. There was discussion about that whether that could be utilized, but that sign is a grandfathered sign that is there for the shopping center, and there are in place lease requirements relative to the tenants and their tenant space on that sign. So that really wasn't workable, but what we've come up with is agreement, coordination to just have the 160 who is not represented on the shopping center sign, have that represented on the sign that's before you.
And that 160 is, for all intents and purposes, the empty bed and bath.
No, 160 is Salem 5.
It is Salem 5, okay.
It is Salem 5, and this new road that we've been talking about is its only access, is coming in, just the same as 152. It's the only access to 160.
So the fourth location we're looking to do on this sign is for who?
Oh, the sign, that proposal that was presented to you tonight is the same size, and it may have 3 tenants on it, which would be 2 at 152
Yep.
and
Salem
160.
5. Yeah.
Or in the event 152 has more tenants, there might be a third 152 tenant and the 160. That's where the fourth comes about, is if there is
So it's still
Fidelity, a
associated with
hotel, and
that
something
numbered
else.
address?
What's that?
It's still associated with the same address
Correct.
as Salem 5?
No.
The
Salem 5 is
That
on
is-
160. 152 has Fidelity and the hotel, and maybe another tenant. That's why they're just giving you another option. There may be 3 tenant panels associated with 152, depending upon how they lease out that space. But it's the same size sign. It's just a question of how it gets divvied up. Salem 5,
Okay, got it.
there is only 1 panel associated with 160 Endicott, and that's Salem 5.
And that's because they're only place to advertise.
Right, and you can't vote on the 160 panel
Because it's not really before
tonight
us.
because it
Right.
wasn't advertised. We have, again, as I said, been working with planning staff to expedite that to be on your agenda of your May 13 meeting, which perhaps, if you were discussing continuing this whole thing, you might want to do all of that on the 13th. That's a Zoom meeting, or we would ask that you have a very quick Zoom meeting relative to the 160 panel on the 13th, as it was one of your meetings advertised.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not meeting at all in May, I believe.
Right. Yeah, no, we do not have any applications before us.
Mr. Chairman, I think,
Yeah,
I'm of the opinion to vote on the sign, give them the area. I don't care how it's cut up.
yep.
And Salem 5 being advertised is a totally different issue.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm okay with that. I don't want them I don't want them to blow up the lease.
No, I just don't, yeah.
Well, I have one question. If we approve it tonight and it has to go to the select board, when is their next meeting? When can it be placed on their agenda for them to vote?
I don't have that answer. I would imagine, though, that they would go in front of the select board once they have the 160 application in as well. So it wouldn't be after the...
152 gets approved, they would wait for 160 to get approved, is what you're saying before?
Well, I'm guessing that they would just do one meeting, one select board meeting. And
But again, I think that's the same thing I'm asking for with this board. It's no
Right,
different. To
because-
me, it's no different. We're asking for one package out of 2 applicants. You're all on the same side.
And it's not
yeah,
really approved until the select board votes.
But they have the lease.
Well, their leases, sounds like, Corinne, they'll activate their lease by our approval.
There's also a question from a Mr. Robert Clark. I don't know if it's appropriate now, but he has his hand raised.
Yeah, Bob Clark is the project engineer for Torrington.
Yeah.
And again, the 160 is, as Attorney McCann reiterated, it's one panel.
Yeah.
The
I don't think the panel's really the question. I'm just trying to put this in a neat package here instead of having it spread out. And no different than the select board would want it. You're not gonna go to the select board with 152 without 160, is my feeling, unless you are gonna do the same thing with that board that you're doing with this board.
Yeah, just so there's some context to this. 152 is the owner of the sign. 152 will be the owner of the sign. 152 is responsible for fabrication, installation, maintenance of the sign. So when we talk about the panel, it's kind of like the tail wagging the dog on 160. The bulk of all of the responsibility is on
you guys. Okay.
152.
All right, well, based on that, and again, wanted to move this forward, I will vote favorably for this tonight. I think before we take a vote, though, Brian, I want to understand, though, and thinking more about this, as Attorney Martinelli has pointed out, if they're the owner of the sign, then they can go before the select board, correct? Because the sign itself physically, and the location, and everything they're going to ask the select board is not going to change if they add a 4th panel to this, correct?
Correct. They're still asking for a compliant sign
On
in a
town-
location that
That will be town land down the road. Okay. Okay, I guess based on that, I will move off my stump here. Okay, could I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move to issue a variance under Section 37 of the Danvers Zoning Bylaw to allow the construction of an off-premise ground sign that is otherwise dimensionally compliant, and that a literal enforcement of the zoning bylaw would involve substantial hardship to the applicant. Granting this variance will not create a substantial detriment to the public good and will not nullify or derogate from the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and the applicant shall apply to the select board for encroachment of a public way, and if approved, must file the variance and the approval letter from the select board at the registry prior to a building permit being issued.
I've got a motion
I second.
and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, you've got it 4-1.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So hold on before we leave.
Yep.
We have we are in receipt of an amended application to include 160 as part of this petition. When are we going to hear that petition?
My vote would be June 10th. If you could, Attorney McCann, to the mic.
So that it's all fresh in everybody's mind, and to keep our agreements that we have going, that we've been working together on for a long time, I would appreciate if, since you've heard everything tonight, if you would consider having a brief meeting, even if you do it by Zoom, on the 13th of May.
No meeting is brief.
Well, you've heard everything.
Hold on, are you able to do that if we advertise it that way, a Zoom-only meeting?
Right, so it's much easier to advertise a Zoom-only meeting. It's harder if we advertise a hybrid. So we could advertise for a Zoom-only and then nothing is in person. We would not have anything here. Everything would be totally Zoom.
Let me just strobe the board. Karina, are you agreeable to a Zoom-only May 13th?
I can do both.
Ken?
I'm open to both.
Yes.
Jeff? Ken?
Either.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'm not sure, yeah, I guess if that might speed it up, I guess. Keep
We
us
would-
all from having to come down here.
Yeah.
Or I guess
would
the Toomey
appreciate
home,
that.
that would be, right? Okay. Yeah, May 13th.
Thank you.
We don't need a motion for that, though, we're just talking about this, correct? Or do we need
Well,
to?
no,
Can I make a
we've-
motion
We've
that we-
received it, we're going to be hearing it
All
on
right.
the 13th. We can't hear it tonight, but we are continuing to May 13th, yes. You do need to continue this petition to May 13th.
All right, so let's read the address in, Jeff, and then we can continue it. So this would be for 160 Endicott, right?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue our petition for 160 Endicott Street to our meeting of May 13th, which will be by Zoom.
A Zoom-only meeting.
Second.
Could I get a second?
Second.
I've got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Very good. Good luck with the project, guys.
Good luck.
I hope it goes well. And with that said, could we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Danvers.
Good night. Good night, Corrine.
Good night, guys.